If your zinnias keep giving you 2 or 3 sad blooms and then quitting on you, I need you to stop everything and watch this. Because the difference between a zinnia plant that flowers for a few weeks and one that explodes with color from June until the first frost isn't luck, and it definitely isn't your green thumb or lack of one. It comes down to 10 very specific things almost nobody tells you, and most of them go against the advice you've probably been following. Here's my promise to you. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to grow zinnias that pump out fresh flowers non-stop, the kind that fill your vases every single week and have your neighbors stopping to ask what your secret is. You don't need fancy equipment, expensive soil, or years of experience. You just need to do these 10 things in the right order. Let's get into it. Number 1, sow them where they'll stay and wait for warm soil. Let me save you weeks of frustration right away. Zinnias hate having their roots disturbed. They are not like tomatoes or peppers that shrug off transplanting. When you start zinnias indoors in little trays and then yank them out to move them into the garden, you stress the plant so badly that it often stalls, sulks, or bolts straight to flowering on a tiny stem before it ever gets big enough to be productive. So here's what you do instead. Direct sow your seeds right where you want them to grow. Push them about 1/4 inch into the soil, cover them lightly, and let them germinate in place. No transplant shock, no setback, just a plant that grows up strong and uninterrupted. But timing is the part people get wrong. Zinnias are heat lovers. If you plant them when the soil is still cold, the seeds rot or sit there doing nothing. Wait until your soil has genuinely warmed up, ideally past 70 degrees Fahrenheit, which usually means a week or 2 after your last frost when nights are no longer chilly. Stick your finger in the dirt. If it feels cool and clammy, wait. If it feels like a warm day at the beach, you're ready. Plant into warm soil and your zinnias will sprint out of the ground in 4 to 7 days. Number 2, pinch the top off. This is the one that makes beginners gasp, and it's probably the single most powerful trick in this entire video. When your zinnia is young, around 8 to 12 inches tall with 3 or 4 sets of leaves, I want you to take a clean pair of scissors and cut the entire top of the plant off. Snip it right above a set of leaves, removing the top 3 to 4 inches. I know, it feels like you're killing your plant. You're not. You're doing the opposite. That single growing tip you just removed was telling the plant to grow tall and lanky on one main stem, which gives you one flower at the top and not much else. The moment you cut it, the plant redirects all that energy downward and outward, and it pushes out multiple new stems from below the cut. So instead of one stem with one flower, you now get a bushy plant with 6, 8, even 10 stems, each one capable of producing its own blooms. You've just multiplied your harvest by pinching once. Do this early, do it on every plant, and watch the difference. A pinched zinnia is a generous zinnia. Number 3, give them way more space than the packet says. Crowding is the silent killer of nonstop blooms, and almost everybody plants their zinnias too close together. The seed packet might tell you 6 inches apart, and you'll be tempted to cram them in because more plants means more flowers, right? Wrong. More crowding means weaker plants, smaller flowers, and a disease problem you'll be fighting all season. Zinnias are prone to a nasty fungal disease called powdery mildew, which shows up as a white, dusty coating on the leaves. The number one thing that triggers it is poor air circulation, and the number one cause of poor air circulation is plants packed shoulder to shoulder. When air can move freely between your plants, the leaves dry out fast after rain or morning dew, and mildew can't get a foothold. Give your zinnias real breathing room, around 9 to 12 inches between plants for the bigger varieties. Yes, your bed will look a little sparse at first, but be patient. Those well-spaced plants will fill in, grow huge and healthy, and outbloom a crowded bed by a mile. Spacing isn't wasted room, it's an investment in a longer, healthier flowering season.
Number 4, water the soil, never the leaves. How you water your zinnias matters just as much as how often. Here's the rule: water lands on the dirt, never on the foliage. Every time you splash water across the leaves, especially in the evening, you create the warm, damp conditions that fungal diseases dream about. Those droplets sitting on the leaves overnight are basically an open invitation for powdery mildew and leaf spot. So aim your hose or watering can right at the base of the plant, down at the soil line, and keep the leaves dry. If you can set up a soaker hose or drip line, even better, because that delivers water straight to the roots with zero splash. And do your watering in the morning, not at night. Morning watering means any moisture that does end up on the plant has the whole sunny day to evaporate. One more thing, water deeply but less often, instead of a little sprinkle every day. A good deep soak 2 or 3 times a week trains the roots to grow deep and strong, which makes your plants far more drought tolerant and resilient. Shallow daily watering creates shallow, lazy roots. Deep watering builds a tough plant that keeps blooming even when the weather turns rough. Number 5, don't overfeed, feed them right. Here's a counterintuitive truth. You can absolutely love your zinnias to death with too much fertilizer. When people see a plant they want more flowers from, their instinct is to dump on the nitrogen-heavy plant food. But nitrogen tells a plant to grow leaves, not flowers. Overfeed with the wrong stuff, and you'll get a gorgeous jungle of lush green foliage and barely a bloom in sight. What zinnias actually want is phosphorus and potassium, the nutrients that drive flowering and strong stems. So reach for a fertilizer where the middle and last numbers are higher than the first. Something marketed for blooms or for tomatoes works beautifully. Feed them lightly every couple of weeks during the growing season, and that's plenty. And honestly, zinnias are not fussy. They evolved to thrive in average, even slightly poor soil. If you mixed some compost into your bed at planting time, you're already most of the way there. Resist the urge to overdo it. A little balanced bloom food on a steady schedule beats a heavy hand every time. Treat them like they're a bit spoiled and they'll punish you with leaves. Treat them lean and focused and they'll reward you with flowers. Number 6, deadhead relentlessly and cut deeper than you think. This is the secret that single-handedly turns a good zinnia into a non-stop blooming machine, so listen closely. A zinnia has exactly one goal in life, and it is not to make you happy. It's to make seeds. Once a flower is pollinated and starts forming seeds, the plant thinks its job is done and starts slowing down production. Your entire mission is to never let it finish that job. That means deadheading, which is just removing the spent, fading flowers before they can set seed. The moment a bloom starts looking tired, papery, or faded, get rid of it. Every spent flower you remove sends a message to the plant that says, "You're not done yet, keep making more." And it does. But here's the part most people miss. Don't just pinch off the dead flower head and leave a bare stick poking up. Follow that stem down and cut it all the way back to where it meets a main stem or a fresh set of leaves. Cutting deep encourages the plant to branch again from that point, giving you even more flowering stems. Shallow deadheading leaves you with ugly leftover stems. Deep deadheading rebuilds the plant. Do this every few days, and your zinnias will literally never stop. Number 7, cut flowers for the house. If you've been growing zinnias and feeling guilty about cutting them for a vase because you don't want to ruin the display outside, I'm here to free you. Cutting zinnias is one of the best things you can possibly do for the plant. Zinnias are the ultimate cut-and-come-again flower. The more you cut, the more they grow. It works on the exact same principle as deadheading. You're stopping seed production and forcing fresh growth. Except now, you also get a gorgeous bouquet out of the deal. But there's a trick to cutting them right. Don't snip a little short stem near the top. Reach deep into the plant and cut a long stem going all the way down to a junction with leaves. This does 2 things. It gives you a nice long stem for your vase, and it triggers the plant to branch out lower down, making it bushier and more productive. Here's a pro test to know if a bloom is ready to cut. Grab the stem about 8 inches below the flower and gently wiggle it. If the stem is floppy and bends, it's not ready. If it's stiff and stands straight, cut it. A properly cut zinnia will last a week or more in a vase, and the plant will thank you by sending up even more. Cut boldly and cut often.
Number 8, choose varieties built for non-stop blooming. Not all zinnias are created equal, and if you're fighting an uphill battle, it might not be your technique, it might be your seeds. Some zinnia types are naturally more productive, more disease-resistant, and more relentless bloomers than others, and picking the right one from the start makes everything else easier. If you want big, classic, full flowers for cutting, look for the tall Benares Giant series. They're vigorous, they have strong stems, and they're noticeably more resistant to powdery mildew than older varieties. If you want a plant that branches like crazy and produces an absolute avalanche of smaller blooms, the Oklahoma and Queen series are workhorses that just don't quit. And if you struggle with disease or humidity where you live, there's a whole class of narrow-leaf zinnias, sometimes sold as Profusion or Zahara types, that are practically bulletproof. They shrug off mildew, they don't even need deadheading to keep going, and they bloom from spring to frost with almost no effort. Match the variety to your goal and your climate, and you've stacked the deck in your favor before you even plant a seed. Number 9. Mulch the soil to lock in the magic. Mulch is the unsung hero of a Nonstop zinnia bed, and skipping it is a mistake that quietly costs you blooms all season long. A 2 to 3 inch layer of mulch around your plants, things like shredded leaves, straw, or fine bark, does 3 powerful things at once. First, it keeps the soil moisture steady. Zinnias get stressed by the wild swings of soggy then bone-dry soil, and stressed plants bloom less. Mulch acts like a sponge and a blanket, holding moisture in the root zone so your plants stay evenly hydrated between waterings. Second, it smothers weeds. Weeds compete with your zinnias for water and nutrients, and every bit of resource a weed steals is a flower you don't get. Mulch keeps that competition down without you having to constantly hand pull. And third, this is the clever one, mulch creates a barrier between the soil and your plant's lower leaves. A lot of fungal disease spores live in the soil and splash up onto the foliage when it rains. A layer of mulch blocks that splash, dramatically cutting down on the leaf diseases that shorten a zinnia's productive life. Lay down your mulch right after your plants are established, keep it an inch or so away from the actual stems, and let it work for you all summer. Number 10. Plant in waves and stop babying the mature plants. Here are 2 final ideas that work together to give you flowers from early summer all the way to frost. The first is succession planting. Instead of sowing all your zinnia seeds on one single day, sow a new small batch every 2 to 3 weeks for the first couple months of the season. Why? Because even with perfect care, an individual zinnia plant eventually slows down as it ages. By staggering your plantings, you always have a fresh, young, vigorous wave of plants coming into peak production just as the older ones start to fade. This is the professional flower farmer's secret to never having a gap in blooms. The second idea is about mindset. Once your zinnias are mature and established, stop coddling them. Zinnias are tough, scrappy plants that actually perform better with a little benign neglect than with constant fussing. They tolerate heat that would melt other flowers. They handle dry spells. They don't need you hovering. So water deeply when they need it, deadhead and cut regularly, feed them lightly, and then back off and let them do their thing. The gardeners who get the most blooms aren't the ones who fuss the most. They're the ones who set their plants up right and then get out of the way. So there you have it. 10 secrets that take zinnias from a quick splash of color to a non-stop, season-long flower factory. Direct sow into warm soil, pinch them young, space them out, water the roots, not the leaves, feed them lean and right, deadhead deep, cut for the vase, pick the right varieties, mulch the bed, and plant in waves while letting the mature plants tough it out. Pick just 2 or 3 of these to start with this season, especially that pinching trick in secret number 2, and I promise you'll see a dramatic difference. Then layer in the rest next time. If this helped you, do me a quick favor and hit that subscribe button, because I share simple, no-nonsense growing guides like this every single week to help you build the garden you've always wanted. And tell me down in the comments which secret surprised you the most and which zinnia variety are you growing this year. I read every comment and I'd love to hear what's blooming in your garden. Now get out there and grow something beautiful. I'll see you in the next one.